all these that I can teach you how to count the number of steps and the certain infinite number of n combinations to, if I can go 1 step or 2 steps, how many possible combinations to get up to 8 steps. Who the hell cares about that?
Welcome to Engineer in the Loop, where we have hands-on conversations at the human-AI handoff, code, tools, and war stories for builders in the loop. This episode is brought to you by From Code to Clarity. Let's unlock clarity on what truly drives you beyond the keyboard. Join your fellow engineers of the Clarity Bites as we explore strategies to go from the code to find your clarity. During your free discovery chat with Clark, mention this podcast to get over 50% off your first session. Again, mention Engineer in the Loop for over 50% off your first paid session after your free discovery call. Let's get into the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the newly rebranded podcast, Engineer in the Loop, a weekly show for software engineers who ship with models in the mix. We are here with our guest, Brian. How's it going, Brian?
It seems the same. What do you mean rebrand? Everything's the same. I don't understand.
Yeah, I think the idea for the rebrand, if you didn't listen to our rebrand announcement, is we have some guests and different folks that are reaching out to be a part of this, and we kind of have to tell them no, because we were branded as an Azure podcast. I actually just had a guest who talked to somebody who used to be like a pretty high level person at Amazon, Apple, and Microsoft, and they're like, I haven't really touched Microsoft in a while. I don't know if I'd be a good guest on your podcast. Mm-hmm. And I mean, based on the name alone and what our description was, you'd kind of get that. I think we had a few people though that I would say weren't even super into technology. We had a few like more leadership type folks that we brought on, and they were tech adjacent, I would say. And I think they were awesome guests, and they showcased like different things going on in the industry and hopefully how other people could get involved in tech careers or tech adjacent careers. I think that is kind of the goal with this rebrand is let's make it more open. Let's allow more people to come in. I don't know about you, Brian, and we'll touch on this a little bit further, but when it comes to side gig work, like I ship code in AWS just as much as Azure right now. Azure is most of my day job stuff. AWS is my side gig stuff. Am I not allowed to talk about AWS at all on this podcast because it's called Azure Cloud Talk?
Right.
And then when I talk to Clark Sell, if you get like, he swears up and down GCP is the greatest cloud ever. And
never heard of it.
Well, and it's like, my blog is Azure Barista.
Yeah.
My podcast was Azure Cloud Talk. I have no reason to go look at GCP. He might be right, but it's not going to fit within the realm of what I have. So I'm moving a lot of my stuff totally under the Engineering in the Loop, getting the domain EIL, Engineering in the Loop, EIL.ai, EITL.ai, sorry. Moving all that forward so that the blog will be under there, the podcast will be under there. And that way I can talk more cross-platform.
There was a toy company when I was younger. I don't know if they're still around, called Ertl, ERTL. So now maybe somebody will fat finger Ertl.com and get to your site. Be like, wait, this doesn't have anything to do with toys. What's going on?
I was going to try to get Engineer in the Loop, so it would be EITL.com, but it's parked by a domain company that just buys and sells domains, and they want like $40,000 for it.
Of course.
And I'm like,
I mean, that's how they make their money. Can't really blame them. Just kind of want them to get out of the way. But
well, they have all their stuff all over there. Like, here's why a 4-letter domain is worth the money. And I'm like, maybe if we're millionaires one day, Brian, I'll buy that domain. But until then, I'm going to make do with what we got.
Just because, be like, screw you guys, I'm buying it. I can afford you now. I don't care. I don't even care anymore. Yeah. It's mine. It's mine.
I'll have to get, I feel like I need to get AlecHarrison.com before that, though.
Yeah.
And that's
I have a friend who's already, like, he had kids and he immediately bought their names, their domain names.
That's hilarious.
Immediately. But there's a guy who's well known. His name is Steve Smith, right? Mm-hmm. And he's got his own domain, and I think that, he protected that early on, was wise enough to be like, I should probably make sure nobody else buys my name online. And like for me, so I do music, if you didn't know that already. Brian Gorman Music is mine, except for someone already had that. I can't remember if it was a Gmail account. I think it was a Gmail. Somebody already had that. So I wasn't able to use it for Gmail or my YouTube for the music thing. But what's really funny is that there's 2 Brian Gormans doing music, and they're both on Amazon and Spotify and all that stuff. And one guy is like very Irish, traditional Irish music, and one guy's very Christian music. So there's quite the contrast. But if you search for Brian Gorman, he's got way more fans than me. So maybe some people accidentally listen to my music every now and then.
It's funny because I have at least 3 or 4 LinkedIn connections that are Alec Harrison.
Yeah.
And I would say I think all of them are more successful than I am. And my opening line is always like, hey, great name, or something like that.
Yeah, that's funny.
Be like, you want to connect?
Yeah. We should
But
connect
one's like
because you're cooler than me and you got my name.
Yeah. One's like a music producer. One's like running startups. It's crazy. Like, man, I know we give Scott would always joke around, Scott Sauber at LT, that he's not the most successful Scott. And I was like, yeah, but you're probably like one of the most successful Scott Saubers. I'm not even the most successful Alec Harrison.
Yeah. I'm not the most successful Brian Gorman. There was an umpire, Brian Gorman. He's the most successful one of us all, I think. Anyway, I think he's umped World Series.
Yeah. I think but yeah, that's kind of the intention of rebranding, is to make it open to a wider audience, get more people in. And I think a lot of our engineering stories we have, right, are kind of technology agnostic. It's how do you propose solutions in a value-driven way? How do we provide value to the business to continue doing what we're doing? And then the engineer in the loop was a play on words of keeping engineering in the loop. There's the book called like A Seat at the Table, which talks about how like engineering gets a seat at the IT, like, or at the C-level table. But also with AI, we talk about human in the loop. So I think it was kind of, it's a play on that as well. So we got, AI topics.
Nice.
We have just generally engineering in the loop. How do we stay in the loop and relevant? And I think staying in the loop and relevant these days is probably harder than ever. I think, Brian, we just saw Microsoft laid off a huge chunk of people, and our hearts go out to them. If there's any way we can help anybody, feel free to reach out.
Some of the people on that list just perplex me. Absolutely just perplexes me, like how you could ever let that person go. Like, there's one guy, and I won't mention his name here just because, he posted this morning that he was one that got let go, but still, and this guy posts all the time on Azure infrastructure stuff. And when I was studying for my AZ 305, I was basically consuming all of his material. And he was a cloud advocate for Azure, and now he's like, I need a job. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, right? Like, if anything else, it just kind of tells you nobody's safe. Like, and that kind of puts a sense of dis-ease into the air that's just like, wait a minute, I could be the most highly performing person with no problems at all and just be like let go in the drop of a hat for reasons, right? We don't even know what the reasons are.
It's hard too, because sometimes people get put on like projects or initiatives that are completely out of their control, and then like maybe an entire department or whatever gets axed. So you might be high performing, but the business decides, is that really worth our money?
Yeah, like I think they axed like the Xbox VR team like a couple years ago, right? They're like, yeah, we're done with that. So if they decide to shift directions, sure. But what boggles my mind is that, if you go to the jobs, like it looks like they're still hiring. And I saw something about Amazon let go of 100 people from their Alexa team, but they've hired 4,000 people over last year. My curious question to you is, you have a high-performing person who's clearly valuable to the company, and you're going to axe their department. You're going to hire another job over here. Why not? Hey, can you come over here? Maybe that is offered, and they chose not to take it. Who knows? We don't really know the internal workings of some of that. I doubt it was, because I think some people would say to the effect of, maybe they can't, but maybe they would. But like, I got reorged, I
think it depends too. So there's like a lot of companies like churn, right? Of like trying to clean out bad talent. And not saying anybody who left was. And then
a lot of good people.
Yeah. And then you can go back and hire in different people and just keep like a fresh sense of, new blood in a company. There is the downside too of like, some people, if you felt like your job was axed, would you necessarily want to go back and work at the same company that just did that to you? Like, what's stopping them from doing it again? Especially if you weren't the reason, right? If your entire department's gone and there's a job opening for another department, there's a chance that could happen again. I don't know. It's hard to tell. I was talking to somebody else about this the other day. I felt like when pre-COVID, like big companies like Microsoft or whatever would do layoffs, it'd be like, you'd see somebody would get laid off, and then next week they were working for Netflix or HubSpot, or pick a new like up and coming company. You're just not seeing that kind of quick turnaround for a lot of people, which I think it also adds to the other sense of unease, right? Of hey,
I'm seeing people posting. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go for it.
I'm seeing people posting like, okay, listen, I played nicely. I mean, I'm paraphrasing. They don't say it like this, of course. They'd be ludicrous to say it like this, but I've played nicely for too long. I have been unemployed to the point where I'm about to lose my house. Please help. Like, desperation is a terrible place to be.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, so on the flip side of this, like I just graduated 10 MSSA students in the CCAT, and they're all entry level. And if you think it's hard when you get fired from Microsoft or wherever, fired, laid off, whatever you want to call it, to find a job, imagine being on the flip side of that, where this economy is existing as it is right now, and people are like, I'm not taking any risks on anybody, especially, a noob. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, being in desperation, I had one student who was just like, I am literally going to go to the table of this interview and just be like, listen, like, just give me a chance, man. I can do this. Just give me a chance. I said, for lack of a better way to explain it, I said, so I want you to think about before you met your wife and you went out on a date, if a girl sat down with you and she said, well, listen, I know I'm kind of ugly, but could you give me a chance? I'm a really good person. I have a big heart. You might not have even noticed that she was ugly before that. And maybe she really isn't, right? But what I'm saying is, like, when you come across like that, it puts you in a spot of vulnerability, but it also can be a huge turnoff for the other people. So, like, seeing people post that they're going to lose their house, I'm like, I hate to see that, but I'm not sure that helps. Does it help? Maybe.
I've interviewed people before, and I've never had anybody nearly to that extent. But if an interview is going rocky, I don't think being guilted into giving somebody the chance, or that, like, I don't know if anybody's ever gotten that. It's like, hey man, like, it's a real tough time out there. I know I didn't do so great on the interview. Like, I've always been told, just kill the interview to the point that they can't say no, or that they can't, whatever. They can't pass on you. You're such a no-brainer, new hire for an entry-level rate that they'd be essentially stupid not to hire you.
Right. What do you do though when you're 15 years veteran of Microsoft, a company, or whatever, Amazon, who cares? One of the big, FANG, Microsoft, whatever, any of those big companies, you've got this thing on your resume that should be just a juggernaut. I am basically somebody who knows their stuff, right? Like, more than any certification, more than any, like, I worked for, the law firm down the street and rebuilt their website. You got Microsoft or Amazon or something on your resume, but you were planning to retire there. You've got 15 years in. You've not even been looking for anything else. Now you're just like, well, what do I do now? Because I don't even know how to look for a job. I haven't thought about looking for a job for 15 years.
Right. I think there is a certain level of, you need to just posting online about it. What I've always heard recommended is post online, put what you're looking for and that you were impacted by layoffs so people can help you, and then allow yourself a little bit of time to just, like, center yourself, breathe, realize what's happening, deal with some of that emotion of, hey, I was just let go. I think then the next thing is if you haven't been looking for 15 years, your resume is probably drastically out of date.
Right.
So start looking at that, trying to figure out, what do you want to do? Do you want to do the same role you did again? And then I think you kind of have a few different ways to do that, right? If you start identifying your real role or what you want to do next, I think you need to start looking at potentially upskilling. So if I know what skills I have it on my resume. How do I kill that next interview? Because you and I both know, Brian, that just because you sling C# code every day doesn't mean you would necessarily ace a super difficult coding kata.
So even first of all, let's talk. That's a whole other. You want to get me going on a soapbox about LeetCode right now, or hacker rank or LeetCode or Code Academy or whatever. All these that I can teach you how to count the number of steps and the certain infinite number of n combinations. To, if I can go 1 step or 2 steps, how many possible combinations to get up to 8 steps? Who the hell cares about that? I mean, come on. Let's be honest. Is there one company in the world who needs you to be able to calculate the different number of combinations of stair stepping you can do with 1 step or 2 steps across 10 steps?
Probably not.
Okay, right. So let's just say, right. Okay, go play the game, though. You can't not play the game. If you want a FANG job, go get, I'm not endorsed by anybody, but LeetCode, HackerRank, Code Academy, any of those with all their coding problems and explanations, it will make you a better developer. There will be things you will learn and see that you're like, holy crap, I didn't know about that. For example, so since we're on this, I would have told you before I went through LeetCode that if you wanted to do a reversing operation, you could use a stack because you just push pop, push pop, push pop. Well, did you know there's a thing called a stack alloc, which is actually a little bit more efficient? No, I wouldn't have known that had I not done this code. Am I ever going to use stack alloc in a actual problem? I seriously doubt it. But I know about it now. So there is that. And the efficiency that it makes you think about and such. It's like, okay, great. Awesome. Woohoo. Hire me. I know about stack alloc. Now, also,
Brian is taking job offers.
If I write code at your company that uses stack alloc, is that going to help all the other engineers who've never seen it before, or is it going to actually make their lives worse? So is there a fine line? Anyway, okay, I got to get off the leak code sandbox because I think that that's the worst possible way to interview a candidate you could possibly give them. Give them a real problem. Okay, but let's circle back. You said keep your skills up to date. This is a red flag, like sirens going off to anybody right now who is still employed. You cannot sit back any longer. You can't not learn. You can't expect to have, unless you're a COBOL programmer, you can't expect to have your same job you have now next year anymore. It's done. We're done with those days. So that means you're going to have to learn Cursor. You're going to have to learn GitHub Copilot. You're going to have to learn how to use different IDEs. You're going to have to maybe know how to write Java, Python, C#, Go, 5 different languages now, just in case. And then you're not pigeonholed into something like, I love C# MVC. If I could do everything my own way, it would always be C# MVC going forward. I've done Angular. I've looked at React. I've seen other things. I've done Java Spring, which is fine, similar to MVC, but it's Java. So I like C# a little better as a professional language. I think Java is a little better as an academic language. That's a whole other story. But with that in mind, like if I could do everything my way, it would be C# MVC. But even MVC's changed from layering and using different layers now to vertical slice architecture. So your company's probably still using layering. I still love using layering because it makes sense to me. But everybody's screaming about, get Mediator and use vertical slice architecture. Okay, that's fine. I have no idea how to do that yet. I'm sure it's easy enough to learn. I can do it. I should probably be learning it now, right? Just in case a job comes open and I've lost my job and I need to know vertical slice architecture, which is actually not a far-fetched thing from a real situation that has come my way. It's like I don't feel confident taking that job or working because I don't know vertical slice architecture. I know it's a big part of your tech stack. So
I have a question for you, Brian. I know
Sure.
you don't have a crystal ball and you're kind of in the training ecosystem because you do training and, trying to help people stay up to date, get certifications. I think certifications are a great benchmark for, hey, I learned enough stuff to get a piece of paper that said I did a thing.
yeah.
I'm curious with the uncertainty in the job market. Do you think like comebacks of like user groups and community driven conferences, all that, like, do you think, and I know it's kind of hard, right? Because you have people who want to skill up for potentially uncertain times. So they probably don't want to spend a bunch of money, but like, is that where we're heading as a society or like a group of developers is, hey, we're going to start helping each other learn, like our user group's going to make a comeback. I know overseas, they bounce back pretty much immediately after COVID. But I think most, if not all user groups, US based, would tell you that they've been hurting since COVID.
I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what the answer to that question is. My gut tells me that everything's a circle. Everything's a cycle. So we had the .com bust in the 2001, 2002 range. Right when I was getting out of college. Jobs were hard to find. User groups and community things sprung up, at least in my world. Maybe they were always there, but they sprung up to be more prevalent after that. So you could be onto something here. You could be recognizing that like the new JavaScript framework came out. Oh, we hate the JavaScript framework. Oh, there's a new JavaScript framework. Oh, we hate that one now. The cycle continues on and on. We love user groups. We hate user groups. We love user groups. User groups I don't have time for user groups. I need user groups, right? We may be in a situation where there's no choice for people but to get involved like that. Now, what's interesting is I was having the exact opposite thought just last week. As we finished up our cohort, we goofed around a little bit on the last 2 days but everybody was able to kind of work on their own. And when I say goof around, we didn't have official curriculum for those last 2 days. We were done with everything. I gave them license to build their own project during those last 2 days and just use what we learned to kind of get something on their resume and all that stuff. And the joke was, this is your time to be a vibe coder, right? And I was working as a vibe coder for those 2 days, kind of just excitedly trying to learn what that was like using Cursor. I didn't realize, by the way, that Cursor has a limit on the free plan, which I used up because I was an idiot and I was vibe coding. What I learned through that process was that vibe coding is absolutely the worst way to code in the whole world. Like, you're never going to get things right, in my mind. Like, now you might get it to work, but my goodness, I've never wanted to swear at AI more than when I was trying to vibe code. It took 2 hours to do something that should have taken 20 minutes, which was, I can't even remember now, but it was something simple like marking someone as is active on a view model. It was very, very straightforward. And it's like, I could not get AI to do it. What I learned through that process was that I was able to, if I structured things well and then asked questions for help around finishing out that structure, like styling it or getting the code and the controller to handle the incoming model to do things, it was really good at that. But it was not good at generating the whole thing from start, at least not the way I was using it, right? But what it made me think was that we are not that far off from this economy of, I don't need to talk to anybody at all day long. I spend my whole day now, this whole week I've just been working on a side project. I spend my whole day talking to various AI, whether it's chat, whether it's a little bit of Cursor or a little bit of, what else have I been using? Of course, Copilot, so Copilot, Cursor, ChatGPT.
Have you used V0 by Vercel yet?
I don't do React, so no. My students have used it. There's another one called Replit, Replit. That one's for Angular. I have used that one. Very impressed, by the way, with their ability to get UI done very quickly for Angular with that. And what I saw my students being able to do with V0 for React, same impressions. It's like, listen, you can do things that would have taken a week in about a day now, if you really use it well. So there is that. But you cannot be a person sitting in your basement or sitting in the office doing the same thing you've done since 2019, not using AI or not at least learning AI, and hope to be able to get a job when you get out sourced or whatever, when you get let go in a month or 3 years or whatever it is. If you thought you were going to stay with this company, I think what these companies are telling us is that we're just butts in a seat. And while we provide value, they're going to keep us until they don't need us anymore. And they're going to move on.
Well, and not trying to be overly pessimistic, but if you boil it down to what IT and programs are for, they are for automating tasks that people don't want to do or deal with to the point that they can be free to do other stuff. Like, think of it like a small business, right? Like, somebody goes in and has to hand key stuff in. They're maybe working out of an Excel spreadsheet. Their first purchase of an IT person might be, hey, give me my P&L for every month, and here's some exception rules. Now, I don't have to run that anymore. It lands in my inbox once a month, and, I just don't even think about doing that anymore. I think we're seeing that, and what we're seeing also is that whatever the simple thing is, like building a scraper for an Excel spreadsheet isn't crazy. The amount of stuff we can do quickly is starting to become kind of crazy. And I think you talked about these AI systems that you can build using Replit, using V0, using all that. We can start building out proof of concepts better, quicker. And it's not, hey, I need 6 months to a year of engineer time just to get a proof of concept out to see if the market even likes this. It can be, I watched somebody talk about using ChatGPT to mock up a UI, and then there's a connector in Figma to drop it into Figma, which then can turn that PDF or just that screenshot into actually movable, designable pieces. So you can go from ideating a UI to dropping it into your, designer of choice to now I can move this text box that was there. I can move the background. I can change the background. I can change the color scheme. And I think Sam Altman made I saw a video of him not that long ago, the founder of OpenAI, and he made some comment about, when you talk to somebody who's 35, 40 using AI, it's a totally different experience than when you talk to somebody in their early 20s. He was like, we saw this permutation kind of with kids and smartphones of, hey, everybody can kind of just use a smartphone, but the younger people adapted it even quicker. They're using it to such a magnitude and an exponential increase of productivity and whatever that people weren't ready to see. I think back to my parents were like, does anybody even call anybody anymore? No, because people text, message on Snapchat, do all this other stuff because it's quicker than let's have a conversation, have the pleasantries. No, we can just message each other when we want to. I think it's all super interesting. I I think one of the worst things you can do in any sort of anything is just sit in a basement, only talk to AI models, because to your point, now if I'm laid off, what's my next gig? Like,
Right.
nobody really has a great impression of me other than maybe I got my job done, but they don't really know me.
Well, it's like the whole Sandra Bullock, the net thing all of a sudden. Like you could be replaced by somebody who pretends to be you and goes into the office, and then you don't even have a job anymore. Suddenly you're in a foreign country without a passport. And sorry.
Yeah. No, exactly. Like what it, and if if they're going to be trying to replace you, and if AI keeps getting exponentially better, the goal is always going to be to do more with less. And if your department, unfortunately, is on the line of, not in the direction the company wants to go anymore, that sometimes can happen. But I think Kevin Griffin had a really great podcast that I loved to listen to for a while. It was called Multi-Threaded Income Podcast.
Yep.
And I think his tagline when he introduced it every episode was the podcast for a turbulent tech landscape, or something to that effect.
Okay.
And I think the goal, or he would tell you the goal in there, was not have a single source of income. In the same way, like when you go to retire, you wouldn't want to have all of your money in a single source of income. You divest your investments, you invest across different things, portfolios, sectors. His idea was like, why don't we do that with our day jobs? Why don't you pick up a side gig or two? That way, if you do get laid off, maybe you can spin up a side gig's hours, or
Sure.
you have an income stream so that maybe it's not as dire as quickly, to the point you brought up of, man, I'm going to lose my house. It's, well, the emergency fund I have, or the income I have, I can cut back
all
expenses.
my investments are cashed out. I had saved up $1 million for retirement. It's all gone. Like, craziness, right?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Go for it.
Well, I was just going to say, I think like two things about what you said about this. Like, there's two concerns, and they're valid with spinning up a side gig. Number one is time. If you have a family and you have all the other things, it's gonna eat into some of your personal hobbies, right? Mm-hmm. So you almost have to make the side gig your personal hobby. Like, for example, this is going to sound really self-serving for a second, but I just decided that, they contacted me. Practical Framework has been one of their better selling books. They'd like a new version. I thought someone else was going to write it. That fell through. So now I've decided, okay, I'll go ahead and rewrite the book. That means that like all summer long, like any of my free time that I could have been, I don't know, watching a movie or something, I'd probably be writing a book. But that's a sacrifice that, I don't know, it's interesting sacrifice. Will it help me in the long run? I don't know. It definitely keeps me sharper on my skills, which is something. But if I was coding all day long and doing that, the second concern I would have would be just burnout. So be concerned, and I guess there's actually a third concern that just came to mind, which is, of course, a conflict of interest, right? Like if you're going to be doing a side gig for a company and they're doing the same business as your main company, and now you're working for competitors doing the same coding kind of things, like, okay, that sounds like something you definitely don't want to be in a scenario, right? But there are other options for side gigs too. Like maybe you franchise, if you have investable income, maybe you buy a business. Maybe you do something different, like buy some car washes. I know one guy bought an ice cream shop, right? Matthew Groves, right? Now his family owns an ice cream shop. Now, I don't know if ice cream shops are lucrative or not, but maybe they just really like ice cream and wanted a discount.
Maybe the way he eats ice cream it is. I'm just kidding. I don't even know who you're talking about.
I don't really know him that well either, other than we've interacted a few times at conferences, and we were on the same plane to the MVP Summit a couple of years ago, but other than that.
Well, and I think it's really common in the tech space. Like you have courses on Udemy. People will teach and help mentor people on stuff maybe they're great at to bring other people up of, hey, I have this wealth of expertise at my fingertips that I know. Why not share it with people? And if I make a couple bucks off of it, cool.
Yeah. And for those of you thinking I'm not good enough, I promise you're better than 90% of the people out there. Just do it.
Exactly. Don't have the imposter syndrome. Just do it. That's how this podcast started, right? Like the first cuts were rough. We just did all raw. I do a little bit more with some AI help now, but even then, like this podcast production wise is not, like, I look at, what is it? The Diaries of a CEO, dude. Have you seen that guy? I was watching his production person, and they have 2 people full time who just talk about thumbnails and titles. That's like their main job for YouTube. And I'm like,
sounds like the worst job ever.
Dude, some people get a real kick out of it. I don't. And, they probably get way better videos. That's why they get millions of views, and I get tens or
we can just bitch about Cosmos again. That seemed to work well.
Yeah, that got I got a ton of views.
I just ranted on Leet Code. That's got to resonate with somebody.
That's going to be a great clip we'll use. So if I don't use that, make sure you call me out in the comments for sure.
Talk about the stair stepping problem.
Yeah.
Everybody will laugh about that that's ever had that problem.
I think the other thing is just like, to your point, like as developers, we also have a lot of hobbies. Like you don't realize how much time you spend building out open source stuff, which is great. But like when you need help or if something needs to give, see how you can turn that side gig. Can you, and this might be a hot take, like, because there's people out there selling their open source projects. Like, can you make money with your open source project?
Yeah. Is open source even going to be a thing anymore? Everybody's going commercial.
Do you just start selling it? Do you go commercial? Do you maybe pause it? Do you make a subscription plan? Like, how can you, at the end of the day, make you and your family secure? It might unfortunately be charging some money for some stuff. And, you know, maybe you have a freemium model. I think what AI is showing us, too, is freemium models are amazing.
They're
you just
annoying
talked
as
about
hell.
Cursor.
I'm always out of tokens. Always. And it's because I asked a question, and then I uploaded a picture. And as soon as I upload my picture, all of a sudden I'm out of tokens.
Yeah. I mean, but they work, right? Like you got to play with all these tools for free, and you haven't had to commit and buy one yet.
I had to buy Copilot for Office.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
for 365 Copilot?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that one's, I mean, but you could have used Gemini. I think it's free for documents.
Yeah.
Again, this is part of the, like, let's get outside of the Microsoft ecosystem. Let's see what's out there. Let's help
There is
people.
nothing but Microsoft. There is nothing else. It is Microsoft or nothing.
Let's help people use the best tool for the job. You know, like I was a part
Which
of
is
the
Microsoft. Sorry.
I mean, I was part of the Founders Hub expert network, right? Like that was fun. When you're a startup, your goal is to get, or even some companies, right? If you can get stuff from idea to making money for a company or even your own product and idea, the quicker you do that, the cheaper you can do that. The best tools will always succeed. And I think that's kind of where I'm hoping to reframe this too. Because when you're, you know, for example, a side gig work, there's multiple different ways. And kind of to loop this all back to when you're being laid off and looking for your next thing, you know, you have your full-time job. If you go from a full-time job to a full-time job, you kind of know what to expect. But there's so much variety in 1099 work. You can work by the hour. You can work fixed bid. Sometimes people even still want you to give an estimate when you're doing by the hour kind of work. Or maybe they, you know, and at the end of the day, if you're doing fixed bid, they don't care if it takes you, I mean, they probably care from being ripped off, but if you solve their problem and that's a $10,000 problem for them and you solve it for $6,000, they don't care. If it takes you 10 minutes, that problem costs them $10,000. You did it for $6,000. If it takes you 500 hours, again, they don't care because you solved it for less than what they thought the problem was worth. And I think that's where AI can hopefully help us, you know, staying up to date, also polishing your skills to see what's something you can build quickly and help people with, whether that's for money or even for open source stuff. Like, how can you help make other people more successful? And then hopefully that karma comes back to you. You continue to network people. They can help you get a new gig, all that sort of fun stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think last call out I'll give LT, I think last I heard has like 12 openings for senior to mid-level developers. We're looking for Java and C#. Normally not being super chill typically, but I know a lot of people are out there looking for gigs. I hear a lot of jobs have, you know, hundreds to thousands of applicants. So if you need an in and you listen to this podcast, let me know and I can talk to you and see if you'd be a fit for any of those kind of roles.
Yeah. I'm showing 4 positions: .NET engineer with ASP.NET Core and React, Java engineer 1, and Java as senior engineer. But that may be multiple positions in those 4.
Correct. I think and it all changes, and some of them are all over the place, right? Like I know we're looking for people with Fabric experience. We're looking for people with .NET experience. We're looking with people for potentially AI experience, Azure experience. That's all on the .NET side. So even if the job description doesn't quite fit what you're looking for, let me know and we can chat, especially if you're looking for something. Want to be a resource and help people out as much as I can.
Yeah, I saw Architect Now down in St. Louis, Kevin Gross Nicholas's company is hiring a senior .NET engineer. I know last I heard Jay was looking for someone. Jay Tower was looking for a lead on one of their deals, last I heard.
What's his company, if people are looking for it?
Trailhead Technology. That's it. I knew it had trail in it.
I'll validate all of these openings too before we post this, and they'll be in the podcast description and show notes too. So if you're listening to this and need something, reach out. Even if you just want to talk to us about it, we'll both be open to talking to you if you want to be connected or want to hear about it without maybe applying.
Dwayne Natwick, we're going to have on in a couple weeks here. He basically posted that if you wanted to like become a trainer, he might be able to help you with like Accolade or cybersecurity training, getting certified for that. I'm also available to talk to if you just want to be like an MCT, Microsoft certified trainer, and you want to learn what that process is like. You got to pass one certification, so I'm happy to help you find resources for that. And then you got to get an instructor-led training certificate from one of the providers now. It's a pretty straightforward process. It is more selective now than it used to be. That being said, quite available to people who have the experience and the know-how.
Awesome. Well, I think that'll be a good wrap for this one. See everybody next week. I think the podcast after this one will be Clark Sell, so he'll be back, and we'll see how that goes. With that, see everybody next week.
Have a good one. Engineers in the loop.